Hello, everybody, and thank you for attending this Balanced Scorecard Institute webinar. This webinar is something we schedule fairly regularly. It's where we cover just the balanced scorecard basics. It's designed for those that are relatively new to the concept or just starting to consider implementing a balanced scorecard in your organization. We'll start with the basic question of what is a balanced scorecard, and then we'll discuss some of the reasons why it's one of the most popular management tools in the world. I'm David Wilsey. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Balanced Scorecard Institute. I've now been teaching or consulting in Balanced Scorecard or KPI, performance measurement, or something related like to those topics for over 12 years. I'm working out of the Balanced Scorecard Institute headquarters in Cary, North Carolina, in the U.S. Thank you all for attending. Again, this is an introductory presentation we offer regularly, and I've noticed that for the third time in a row we have almost 1,000 people registered. So clearly there's a lot of interest out there in Balanced Scorecard. As most of you know, this is a webinar that we present as part of a promotional that we do for our Balanced Scorecard Professional Certification Program. We've been offering this program in association with the George Washington University College of Professional Studies for over 10 years now. We offer the course about 35 times a year now worldwide. If you're interested in this, you can get a discount by attending this webinar before the end of February 2018 by using the Balanced Scorecard Basics discount code, or just contact us directly. Many of you have probably already heard of the phrase balanced scorecard, as it's a pretty popular framework. Bain and Company, we like to show this. They track the usage of management tools. They have been for years. And balanced scorecard has been in the top 10 for all of this decade. When you realize that the way we approach it, we're really talking about a holistic system that includes things like strategic planning and mission and vision statements and change management and specific approaches to strategy and performance improvement, like customer segmentation, benchmarking, and things like that. You can tell that at a certain point we're really just talking about good management, and it's really a comprehensive and popular solution. You might have also noticed that in the same study they found that balanced scorecard and strategic planning in general are not only used a lot, but they have relatively high satisfaction rates compared to other management tools. So not only are organizations using a balanced scorecard, but for the most part they think that they're getting some value out of it. Okay, so let's talk about what we mean by balanced scorecard, and then we'll talk about why it's so popular. So Balanced Scorecard was originally developed by Dr. David Norton of Harvard University and Robert Kaplan of Harvard University and Dr. David Norton as a framework for measuring organizational performance using a more balanced set of performance measures. And what I mean by that is measuring not just the financial results, but measuring other non-financial considerations. The system has evolved over the years. So it's now considered a fully integrated strategic planning and performance management system. You can use it to communicate what you're trying to accomplish, align day-to-day work that you're working on with vision and strategy. You can use it to prioritize what you're in terms of projects, programs, services, your strategy in general. And you can of course continue to use this to measure and monitor progress towards your targets. So it's a system that can be used to align all the components within your organization. So if you're one of these organizations you have a million things going on, it doesn't feel like you're organizing your thoughts or prioritizing, then Balanced Scorecard might be a framework that you would find valuable. So when you start with a framework like this, you have to start at high level. So the high level concepts like mission, vision, strategy, they provide context for what the organization does. So we start there, then we break that strategy down into specific objectives. And objectives are the continuous improvement activities that we want to implement to be strategically successful. Then those objectives are laid out in the form of a strategy map, which visualizes how the organization creates value. Then measures are used to track organizational performance, or you might call those KPIs, and then targets are the desired level of performance that we're aiming for. And then finally, the strategic initiatives are the projects, the high-level projects that are designed and implemented to help you reach the targets that you set. Okay, so you might, maybe your objective is to improve your health. Your measure is the weight that you're measuring every day, and your target is to reduce your weight by 20% by next year. And then you have an initiative called, our new exercise program or a new diet that I'm working on. Okay, so the balanced scorecard is a disciplined system that connects the dots between all these components and helps you, or as an organization, focus on strategy and improve performance. One of the signature concepts of the original balanced scorecard is the idea that you should monitor performance from a more balanced set of perspectives. Okay, so rather than just simply gauging your success based on your finances, whether you're making money like a private company might, but you also want to look at success from a customer perspective to know whether or not you are delivering value in their eyes. And then you'll also want to look at the organization in terms of internal process. Are you delivering products and services better? Are you delivering them more efficiently, etc.? And then finally, you want to look at the organization from a learning and growth perspective, or as we like to refer to it, the organizational capacity perspective, to know that you're developing your employees, you're improving knowledge, skills, abilities. You have the tools you need, the leadership, infrastructure, culture, things like that any organization needs to improve in order to make the perspectives above it improve. So the specific names of these perspectives might change, but the concepts remain consistent. For example, if I work for a government or a mission-driven organization, I might refer to the financial perspective as stewardship, or I might refer to the customer perspective as the stakeholder perspective. But again, the basic concepts remain consistent. So the purpose of a strategy management system is to make sure that the actions that your organization take are driven by and supportive of strategy. In other words, your vision and mission should drive what strategy you decide to implement. And then high-level strategy should drive what objectives you're trying to achieve, and the actions that your organization takes should be helping you achieve your strategic objectives. And I know this seems like common sense, but unfortunately, many organizations do not have anything in place to manage this interaction. And so there's a disconnect, or in some cases, maybe even a contradiction between what people are working on and what the organization is trying to achieve. So it almost seems like some strategic planning efforts are designed around just justifying a preordained list of actions or initiatives rather than the other way around. Another high-level purpose here is to use measurement to monitor and drive cause and effect nature of your strategy. So you want both leading and lagging measures. So lagging measures are those that indicate past performance, whether you've accomplished what you're trying to accomplish, what are you trying to achieve. And then leading indicators predict future success. So you want to have a balance between these two types of indicators, as you want to both understand whether you're achieving your goals and whether you're making improvements on the factors that you believe will drive future success. This is confusing for some folks because they're, leading and lagging are relative terms. For example, the number of smoking cessation programs that my organization holds could be considered a leading indicator relative to the percentage of the population that smokes cigarettes. On the other hand, the percentage of the population that smokes cigarettes could be a leading indicator for long-term cancer rates. Okay, so that the fact that these terms are relative can be confusing for some folks, but it's really important that you understand this cause and effect story, and that you're really trying to get to the bottom of whether the actions you're taking are improving and actually making a difference on the outcomes that you're ultimately trying to drive. The purpose here is also to apply a more disciplined approach to managing performance. Instead of relying on nothing but gut instinct, performance should be tracked over time, and strategic decisions should be made based on evidence. Okay, so every employee should have access to your strategy map. You should ideally understand how the organization is performing on each of these objectives. Okay, so in this picture you see the color coding, with green indicating good performance, yellow indicating caution or medium performance, and then red indicating underperformance. You should also have an instinct for what areas of your strategy are underperforming so that you can focus on those problem areas and move resources around if needed. There's no requirement that you buy a professional software tool to implement a balanced scorecard. But even if you're using Excel, whether you're using Excel or a system like this, we're looking at a quick score picture here. The point is that employees should understand how the organization is performing strategically and be able to make decisions based on that information. So here's an example of an organization-level balanced scorecard. Now, this is for a generic city government, but the pieces will look roughly the same as any other type of organization. At the top, you see the high-level mission, vision, and strategy for the organization, for the city. And this is how they communicate their picture of the future, their purpose, what are they really about. It also features three or four high-level focus areas for the strategy. In this case, they have four. You could call these goals, you could call them priorities, but the point is there's four high-level focus areas for the organization, and each one has a very distinctly written strategic result. Okay, so then on the rest of the left side of the screen, you've got objectives that also continue to tell a story that is used to communicate your strategy. What are we trying to accomplish? What is the picture of that strategy? And how do the four perspectives relate to each other in our organization? Okay, so again, this visual diagram is a strategy map, and it tells a story of how the city government creates value. In the middle part of the screen, you see their measures and their targets. So any well-designed measurements can help the organization, in a lot of different ways. They can provide an objective way to see if your strategy is working. It can focus attention on what matters most. It can provide common language for communication, and it helps reduce the sort of the uncertainty around all the intangibles that are related to our strategy. Okay, what do we really mean by awareness or accessibility? Well, if we can define that in a measurement, we've helped bring some detail or some tangible, something tangible to that issue. Finally, out to the right, you can see the strategic initiatives that the organization is implementing in order to improve performance and hit targets. Okay, so they've identified a target that they're trying to hit in a particular focus area, and they've got an initiative that's designed to move that needle. Okay, this list is created through a prioritization process. It's guided by strategy. It's designed to make sure that you're leveraging the ideas that will make the biggest improvement. Okay, here's a private sector example. Again, without going into too much detail, you can see how the system tells a story, and it connects the dots from top down. Okay, so this is an energy company, and they have a thought leadership strategy. They think that if they can build those capacities, it'll help them improve their products, increase awareness as a leader in the industry, and ultimately increase revenue. This is based on a company we worked with that used to provide people to appear on TV. CNBC would have, when they're talking about the energy industry, they would have somebody from this company as a talking face. So that helped them increase awareness and ultimately drove revenue. Okay, so this is part of a higher level, energy leadership strategy, and is even tied to their mission statement. They have teams working on thought leadership strategy and research expertise, and they have a balanced set of measures. And those are in place to help make sure that they follow through on that strategy. They focus on the right things. So even in this simple teaching example, you can see how the dots connect throughout the system and tells a story of how their strategy is supposed to work. Okay, now obviously there's much more to the system as you dig into the details, but generally that's what we mean by a balanced scorecard. All right, so let's stop and do a quick poll. I always like to get a sense of the audience and how many of you are new to this and how many of you are old friends coming back for a review. It's also a good chance for you to see, to think about your organization and answer this question and see how you compare with all the other organizations that are online right now. All right, so you should now see the questions. If you could, give some thought to your own organization and answer the questions. I'll give you maybe a minute or so. We'll see how many people are still awake at this point in the program. Okay, as usual, there's a few at the top and a few at the bottom, and a lot more in the middle. I'll show you the results in just a few seconds. All right, maybe more, about 10 more seconds. All right, so there are the results. So we have 23% that are making no effort to manage this. We got 57% that are using some formal methods, and then we have 20% that that do have a framework in place. Okay, so that's we've done this webinar a few times, and that's pretty typical. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so we've answered the question about what a balanced scorecard is. So the next topic is to talk through, why do so many organizations have one? Many organizations use them simply to get the benefits of using a disciplined framework, just to get everybody using the terminology the same way. Can we connect the dots? Does it feel like, are we communicating to our employees that we're good at planning? Balanced Scorecard Institute was recently featured on Bloomberg TV with Howard Rome, and a number of our clients discussed why they have a balanced scorecard. So BioBridge Global is a good example of one that they use this as a system, a framework methodology to structure the way they manage strategy, just from planning a strategy all the way down through execution and measurement, follow through, evaluation. There's a benefit simply by, like I said, having everybody use the language the same way. If you're walking down the hall and one person's using the word objective and another person is using the word goal, and somebody else is talking about a strategic priority, well, you've already got a problem. Uh, a formalization for how we go about formulating strategy is another benefit. Okay, it's a key element in developing a strong balanced scorecard. We typically facilitate a discussion around a SWOT analysis. We talk about customer needs. We talk about a customer value proposition, strategy profile, themes, results. All these things are helped, bring the context for your objectives, measures, and initiatives later. Okay, so this chart shows how the blue ocean strategy profiling technique is used to visualize the strategic choices that an organization has to make. Okay, so this is a for-profit airline example, but the concept can apply to any type of organization. In this example, the airline identified different differentiators in the market and then mapped out the emphasis that other airlines placed on each factor in red, and then they mapped out the emphasis that they plan to place on each factor. Okay, so they were able to emphasize some things that they were going to de-emphasize relative to everybody else, and then the three that they decided to exceed their competitors. Okay, so in the nonprofit world, the same tool is used to map out our current focus, strategic focus, versus where we would like to be, our to be focus. Okay, so it's a good way to visualize for your employees, what are the new strategic things that we're going to emphasize going forward. Another benefit that the organizations are going for when they use a balanced scorecard is the improved communications of strategy. And a big part of that is using a strategy map. Now they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that's definitely true of strategy. If you write out a long narrative of your strategy, a lot of times you'll lose people, because most people are visual. So if you can share a graphic depiction of the strategy instead of that paragraph description, they'll understand it. Okay, so it visualizes strategy by showing the cause and effect relationship between objectives. So you start at the bottom. In this simple teaching example, you can see that this organization wants to improve knowledge and skills and improve tools and technologies. Those two objectives are going to help them increase process efficiency, which in turn helps them lower cycle time, which drives something that's important for our customers, not having to wait so long, and something that's important to our accountants, that we lower costs. Okay, so ultimately all those objectives are driving the profitability objective at the top. Okay, so this is a simple story you can see, but you can very quickly see what's important for our organization. Okay, and, so this methodology can be used for any type of strategy to tell a story about how we create value. Okay, let's do another quick poll. Okay, how would you say that your organization communicates strategy? All right, you should see the questions at this point. Okay, so this will give you a chance to see where do you stand, your perception of where you stand relative to everybody else on the webinar in terms of communicate. Do you communicate strategy or do you not? Do you just sort of make this up as you go, or do you have a strategy for communicating what you're trying to accomplish? Okay, and we're almost up to the percentage that we had on the last one, so maybe let's do 10 more seconds. All right, very good. Let's share the results. Okay, and as you can see, 17% of you feel like you do not communicate strategy at all. Okay, so hopefully a balanced scorecard can help you with that. And then we've got 58% that feel like you're working at this in an ad hoc fashion. You're focusing on this, and then 25% feel like you're pretty successful about this. Okay. All right, another example from our interviews on Bloomberg TV is that we learned that Fluor Corporation's power division used the system to communicate their strategy throughout the organization to help understand how how the projects that employees were working on supported strategy. They held town hall meetings around their strategy using the balanced scorecard and communicated how the organization was performing against targets. Okay, so again, this is all about getting everybody on the same page and making sure we all understand what we're trying to accomplish and what we need to do to move forward. Another key benefit associated with balanced scorecard is around organizational alignment. Okay, so this happens when strategy is cascaded to different tiers of the organization. In other words, you start with the organizational scorecard, basically what I've shown you thus far, which includes all the high-level strategy and various elements that all the pieces that I've talked about, and then you translate that down into the organization. First at the department or unit level, and then at the team or individual level. We refer to the organizational level scorecard as Tier 1. We refer to the business or support unit level scorecard as Tier 2, and the job description level scorecards as Tier 3. Okay, this is especially helpful if your organization suffers from the problem of working in silos. So the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing or why. Okay, let's try our third poll question. Okay, so how well does your organization align by strategy, top to bottom? Okay, the same type of question. We have no effort, or we've just begun, or we're really good at this. I'll give you about 30 seconds or so you can see how everybody else is on the call. All right, this one's going a little slower. Some people have to think about this one, I guess. All right, let's say about another 5 seconds. All right. So 27% we have made no effort to create alignment. It's interesting. And 41% we have just begun cascading or used. So we have some people working on this. Sorry, I can't see the entire answer on my screen. We have 20% who have successfully cascaded and 11% that have fully cascaded. So only 11% are really in the advanced category here. This is really more of an advanced concept. All right, very good. Another organization that we featured in that the Bloomberg video had to do with was the National Marrow Donor Program. They were very successful in cascading their scorecard. Otherwise, this organization also is known as Be the Match program. Beyond cascading, they used the balanced scorecard to introduce some discipline to the prioritization of initiatives based on expected strategic impact, and then they use it as a tool for evaluating whether they were actually making a difference or not. Okay, so they also fully automated the scorecard using software to track, trend, and share strategy and performance information with all of their employees. Okay, so there's a lot of examples here, and I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but the Federal Ministry of Health in Ethiopia, with the help of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, used the balanced scorecard to improve their performance on several key metrics, such as inpatient mortality and hospital waiting time. The U.S. Army Medical Department Center and School used the balanced scorecard to improve alignment and focus. They actually saved $26 million for the U.S. taxpayers by improving their training attrition. And then Veolia Water used balanced scorecard to align their North American units and improve their performance as well. So again, I'm not going to go into great detail, but just contact us if you'd like to know more about how the tool can be modified to fit in your situation. Now, obviously, you can't just wave a wand and have a successful balanced scorecard. There's some work involved to getting this going. Okay, so we've observed over the years that there are some critical success factors to long-term success in terms of in terms of getting the system off the ground. And I think the most important of those is that you really have to have leadership on board. It doesn't take long for employees to figure out that that the leader is not on board with this. Or he or she if he or she is not engaged in the process, then employees will not be either, and this will be a tough effort. You also have to make sure that there's a concerted effort to manage change for this work. In other words, you want people to be doing something new. You have to think through those benefits for people, communicate why we're doing this well, and follow all the other good change management practices. You have to realize that you're shifting at this point to a more of a fact-based decision-making process, as opposed to just using your gut instinct. That's really hard for some people, and so you have to make a concerted effort to realize that you're shifting your culture to using information. Okay. It's really beneficial here to have strong project management. Have disciplined folks on your team who are good at doing this. This is all about implementing initiatives in order to hit a target, to improve the organizational performance. And if you are not very good at managing projects and getting things done, then you might not hit that target. Let me just put it that way. It does require long-term commitment. It's certainly not something that you're going to be finished with at the end of a week-long training or a couple of days of strategic planning retreat kind of a thing. It is something that's going to require long-term change in the way you manage. Okay, the way you communicate, you should have ongoing performance meetings, maybe once a quarter, maybe once a month even, where you talk about how you're performing and whether you're accomplishing what you want to accomplish. Are you hitting your targets? Are you implementing your initiatives? The point is that's the whole point, is to organize the organization around your strategy. And then finally, you do have to think through how you're going to motivate the right behaviors, whether you can incentivize or engage or motivate your employees some other way. You can't really just dictate to employees in a command and control fashion. You have to include them in the conversation, let them take ownership, let them feel like they're making this happen. Now, the simplest way for you to get started on a balanced scorecard journey is through our Balanced Scorecard Professional Certification Program that I mentioned at the beginning. The program walks participants through our 9 steps to success methodology for building and implementing a scorecard. We've offered this program in association with the George Washington University College of Professional Studies for years, and we hold this 6 or 7 times a year in Washington, D.C. at their facilities, and then we offer it in hotels and other training type facilities all around the world, Chicago, Atlanta, San Francisco, etc. Anyway, so if you want more information about this, just go to our website at the bottom, balancescorecard.org/BSP. Like I said, all the programs are available internationally through our partner network in places like Australia, the UK, many locations in the Arab world, Asia, Africa. So just visit our website and you'll see the schedule. The other direction you can go into if you want to implement this is with consulting services for anyone that needs a more hands-on approach. This is where an expert comes to your organization, facilitates your team through a series of workshops. We've worked with a diverse range of organizations, big organizations, small, and every time we tailor the solution to the client's exact needs. Okay, and it's whether you want to build something from scratch or improve something that you've been using for a year or years, or just want to focus on measures or project management, something along those lines. All right, so we're about out of time, but I do have some time for some questions. If you would like, please find the questions panel in your GoToWebinar interface. Usually when there's hundreds of participants like this, we get hundreds of questions, and so I won't be able to get to all of them, but I'll see what I can do. We will definitely get to a few of them. There's always a lot of questions about the slides or the handouts or something along those lines. What we like to do is we post a replay of the presentation in the next day or two. We'll send you a notice so you'll have access to this content in that sense, and you can share it with whoever you would like. All right, we have a few questions coming in about measurement. How do you how do you measure this? How do you measure that? Intangibles, kind of a thing. Brand image, loyalty. The hardest part about measurement is really the step before measurement. The key to measuring intangibles is to translate them into a more tangible result. Let's see if we can get everybody to agree what we mean by brand loyalty, or can we agree by what we mean by thought leadership? If we can't agree on what loyalty means, then we're probably going to have a hard time measuring it, and we probably don't have the consensus around strategy that we think that we do. Can you recommend some consulting companies that we do offer consulting services? So I would recommend us or our one of our partners. Can you assess the quality of strategy before deploying a balanced scorecard? That's a great question. We do have an assessment tool on our website called the Strategic Management Maturity Model. That's a good assessment tool. If you wanted to talk to one of our consultants, we were happy to talk through on the phone where you stand and what are some of the gaps between where you are and where you would really like to be. What if my boss doesn't want a balanced scorecard? That's a really good question. I stressed a couple slides ago how important, I think the last slide, how important leadership is, and if your leader specifically doesn't want a balanced scorecard, sometimes it's just about the phrase balanced scorecard. Balanced scorecard's been around a long time now, and it's become a bit of a lightning rod phrase for some people. They had a bad experience with it. They don't want a balanced scorecard. But the fact of the matter is the principles really matter. The principles of articulating what you're trying to accomplish, communicating how your strategy works, measuring your results. I mean, those are principles that go way beyond the phrase balanced scorecard. So we tell people just name it something else. Implement the principles. Make sure you move the organization forward. And as a matter of fact, when we consult, we oftentimes will tell our clients specifically, name this something else. Name it something that your employees will identify with it. Somebody asks, Meredith asks, what is a KPI? I apologize. I used an abbreviation on one of my slides. That's a key performance indicator. Okay, we use that synonymously with strategic performance measures. Key performance indicators. That's what I mean by KPI. And there's also some questions about our KPI programs. That those are similar programs, but they focus specifically on steps 5 and step 7 of our 9-step methodology, where we focus on performance measurement, development, and performance measurement implementation. Okay, so step 5 of the 9-step balanced scorecard framework focuses on measures, and the KPI programs, the key performance indicator programs, are similar programs, but they focus specifically on measurement. How many indicators per perspective? That's a good question. We really think of it more as how many objectives per perspective. Usually we're looking at a total of 12 to 14 objectives on your entire strategy map. So you're looking at 3 or 4 per perspective. For each objective, you're going to have 1 to 3 1 to 3 measures. We're basically trying to keep this system as simple, as minimal as possible. Okay, as focused as possible. We don't want this to be overwhelming for the organization. So if you end up with 40 objectives and each objective has 10 measures, boy, you're going to have a problem. It's going to be overwhelming. So and the last thing you want is for everybody to tell you, gosh, this is just way too much work, and I don't have time to do my real job. Okay, a couple of questions about is this just a private sector tool? No, or is it for big companies? No, I mean, this is really more of a tool that can be used for any type of organization and any size organization, to be honest. A couple more questions about overloading the system with KPIs. I think I talked about that. Just every step you have to be a brutal minimalist. Mark asks, what about KPIs versus OKRs? Okay, which is best? I'm gonna overwhelm you with abbreviations. Key performance indicators versus objectives and key results. Objectives and key results is a relatively new way of thinking about this. It's very similar. You have objectives that are more qualitative in nature, and then key results tend to be the measurements. We just feel like that's a fine methodology, but it's just the same thing, sort of reorganized in a different format. I think the argument from the OKRs, the objectives and key results fans, the argument there from them is that the OKR model might be more agile. It's something you can adapt on the fly faster, but I think that it really boils down to how you implement a balanced scorecard and whether you can do that. You apply the same agile principles in the balanced scorecard context. All right, I think we are out of time. I'm going to stop at that point. Please contact us on our website or reply to your replay notice that you'll get in the next day or so if you'd like to discuss a question in more detail. Otherwise, thank you all very much for attending, and good luck. Let me know how things turn out. Let me know if there's any way we can help.